Hello and welcome to this patreon.com/WrestleTalk exclusive bonus WrestleTalk podcast.
Oh my God, we're just chucking out the content. I nearly said free content for the patrons. That is explicitly not what it is.
No.
But thank you so much for supporting us here on the Patreon. That's why, we want to give you as much love back for all the love you've shown us. So there's no Dave this time. I know Ollie and Dave is the big draw Patreon crowd, but got this guy.
I guess we'll have to settle for the OG. It's kind of like when the OG showed up in TNA. A lot of people were like, no, but I like the new LAX. Like, sure, Homicide and Hernandez is grand and all, but I'm actually more into these two lads now.
I've moved on from Hernandez. If anything, I like Homicide more these days.
Of those two. So we are the OGs. Which one of us is Homicide?
Oh, I don't know. Because I don't look at either of us. I feel like we're quite similar. Whereas the thing with Homicide and Hernandez, there's a gulf in size there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say either of us are the Homicide or the Hernandez. No. I think we're both the Santana.
That's good. We're both the Kona.
Yeah.
We're both old. We're broken down. We're not taking Canadian destroyers.
We're not both the Kona. We're both the Disco Inferno.
Oh, it's even worse. There's going to be a lot of... they're already starting to do it as well. The podcasters who spent the last year being like, they're going to get kicked off the network. They know they're getting cancelled, so they're not even trying anymore. They are... they're already moving the goalposts. That this is not as big of a deal as some are making it out to be. The AEW TV deal.
So before that's a good freaking segue, man.
Thank you, man.
I did say before we started recording this, I was like, hey, we can just jaw jack. We can talk about Great British Bake Off for 50 minutes of this podcast because it's behind a paywall that people want the rambling. But well done for getting there quicker rather than going through all of that.
We do have a lot to dive into.
So because I also have pushed my own agenda on this where I want to go through 5 years of viewership data. Luke's like, let's just cover the deal. And I'm like, but I really want to talk about 5 years of... It up.
Look, I've got this graph.
Oh, fuck! Sorry, I shouldn't have sworn. But we're behind a paywall, and that's what that does to me. And so maybe I'll just do like 4 swear words a year. And that is deserving of one swear word.
You're going to treat your swear words like AEW used to treat DQs.
So one thing I don't think any of us saw when AEW started up was the cottage industry. Probably around 2021, I think it really kicked off. Well, once everything had come through the pandemic mostly and wrestling hadn't died, of a lot of podcasters, particularly I would say old-timers or veterans, really heavily criticizing AEW, Tony Khan, the style of wrestling, and its philosophy.
I think a lot of that kind of was bubbling in 2019 because we saw it on our own channel. Like when we started doing coverage of AEW stuff, there were people who were just so dead against AEW and hated the style of wrestling that they did, hated that they were competition to WWE, and just actively did not like All Elite Wrestling. So I think that's always been bubbling in 2019. What happened in 2021 is that people realized they could monetize that and monetize it very, very effectively, which I think was then helped a lot by Brawl Out. I think Brawl Out is kind of the turning point of it because not only does AEW stop being a hot commodity, it's hard to do anti-AEW podcasts when they are an incredibly popular company and people like them. But when that tide turns, it's so much easier to be a grifter that hates AEW and you can make every single week just about here's the business reasons why AEW is failing because I've been in the business, so I know the business of this, and could just spout things for an hour with no actual evidence to back up what you're saying and just hope that eventually you're right and people buy into it because people are now not into AEW anymore. And
so AEW bears some responsibility for this because as we'll get onto with that that viewership graphic in a bit. Oh, there it is. Oh, can I? Because I can't see anything that far away. That's probably about the length of Dave Bradshaw away from me.
Yeah.
His height, So where is the bit where Brawl Out happens?
Okay, do you want to bring the laptop up so you can see?
Yes, please. I mean, everyone can probably see this on their screen.
Well, everyone can. I'm doing
Apologies for audio listeners.
I'm doing this for your benefit. It was Brandon Thurston that posted this. I thought it was. No, that's the wrong one. That's a different graph. Hold on.
Yeah, okay. So we've got the CM Punk debut in late 2021. So maybe that's not when the heavy criticism started.
No, I think it's here in 2022. I got my years mixed up.
Yeah, same here. It's I don't want to be Nostradamus, but it's exactly the moment I said when it happened that this feels like something's changed here. It's the purchasing of Ring of Honor.
Which is so interesting because when you were making those comments, you got roundly criticized by not only our audience, but our audience outside of the Wrestle Talk bubble that said, you're being negative about this. You should be celebrating that this is a good thing. But you were there like, I think this is a bad move. And yeah, I think you can take your lap of honor.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that's what this is all about at the end of the day.
Well, you have skipped over our format here where we were supposed to talk about the TV deal, just jump straight to the graph chat.
I didn't mean to do that. I'm so excited. So anyway, just keep it up for a second because you've got, I think Cody Rhodes leaving is a huge part of this. The purchase of Ring of Honor, which diluted the product. Around that same time, CM Punk gets injured. Yep. You see a dip. CM Punk comes out, brawl out, and then from there, it is a steady decline. That is a straight line down with various bumps, but the bumps become less high, the valleys become deeper as it goes on. We'll go more into that. I'm just using that to illustrate my point of around that mid-2022 time is when a lot of the vitriol against AEW started. And I would say it was, correct me if I'm wrong, led by 3 people. Jim Cornette's podcast.
Who has been doing it since 2019.
And in a weird way, and it's behind a paywall so we can say whatever we like, hopefully, I almost respect that mindset more.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I don't like AEW because they have a difference in wrestling philosophy from me.
Yeah, it stems from he already did not like Kenny and did not like the Young Bucks, so them launching a wrestling company was something he was not going to like. And then it being successful probably furthered that anger that he had towards it.
Yeah, and I think something that often happens with online commentators is they find that a particular viewpoint resonates and makes money for them, and they go deeper down that rabbit hole, and it's very difficult to get out. And you believe you drink your own Kool-Aid. I'm not saying that's what Jim's doing. I think he's a very passionate man about a particular style of philosophy.
He does not like their style of wrestling,
but he's had it from day one. So I'm like, okay, that's at least consistent. And for me, consistency is a big thing. With Eric Bischoff and Conan, who I would say are the other 2 leaders of the anti-AEW movement.
In certainly the veteran stance.
In the veteran stance. I find it hard to take their criticism 100% honest because it coincides with them losing their work with AEW.
That's what I was going to say. It really does coincide with them not being booked by AEW anymore, that they started their anti-AEW stance.
Yeah. So yeah. Who would you say are the other proponents of anti-AEW rhetoric?
I mean, I won't name names sort of like with our YouTube sphere for fear that someone will just clip this out and put it as a public post.
Yeah.
But I think there is one prominent name who has, over the last year or so, become the stalwart of the anti-AEW brigade and is very much doing the moving the goalpost of like, I never cared about the TV deal to begin with. I don't know why everyone's asking me for my opinion on this. I never cared about it, when he has done plenty of videos talking about the AEW TV deal.
What would you say are the goalposts that the anti-AEW side did set before today?
They're going to get kicked off the air.
They're going to get kicked off the air. They're not going to make money.
Yeah,
they're losing money. Tony Khan's a mark.
Yeah, Tony Khan's a money mark. Wasting money. The business was only bought because of your dad's money. Vince never did that. Vince built the company from the ground up, sort of thing.
Which is false.
Which is false, yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of the main one is, for the last year or so, because ratings have been trending downwards, is they're not going to get a new TV deal. They are going to get kicked off the air and they're going to go out of business. Jim Cornette in year 1 was saying like they won't be in business within a year because they just won't. He just doesn't think that business could be successful. And he was proven wrong and has been proven wrong again. But the ones who came in sort of the 2022 era are being proved wrong from a different standpoint, which they're like, well, no, we have now evidence, like viewership evidence to show this is not a sustainable business model. Attendance is going down, ratings going down. WBD are not going to throw money at this.
Mm-hmm. And the deal that's been announced, that has been, in the works for months, it feels like.
Yeah.
This is longer than Veer McMahon come in. So run us through I think previous, you've probably got all the numbers. Do we know what the original, because it was a 2-year deal, I think, and then they renegotiated, they added in Rampage, Collisions, and as an extension.
They had the deal in 2019, that then got upped in 2021 for Rampage, then it got upped again in 2023 for Collision. So they made increases on each one of those deals originally, but it was within a same sort of 5-year deal. We are just adding money onto the deal we've already signed with you. And I believe that deal, I might double check this, but Meltzer said it was probably about $90 million a year for those 3 shows. And so the report was, it is going to be double what they have made for that deal. Certainly, like, it's way more than what they signed for the original one, but probably double what the deal ended up being when it was going to expire in 2024.
It's very difficult to get exact numbers for this because AEW is a private company. Yeah. It's not publicly traded. They don't need to release their revenue data. But from what generally the reports over the last few years, AEW has not made money.
No.
But that could be because there's been a lot of reinvestment into the product.
That's the sort of the viewpoint on it, is that they have spent a lot of money. Like, they spent a lot of money on the video game, but that is...
Turned out well.
But the idea of that was speculate to accumulate.
Yes.
Like, that was spending money with the idea that we've built our own game engine. We can now use that game engine to make more things and to create a new business. It did not work out well for them in that one. But sometimes things in business don't work. You got to try.
Yeah, like for for here, No Rolls Barred, which is one of our other brands, did not make money. It lost a lot of money for years. Mm-hmm. And then, we're hoping one day it would turn around, and it very, very thankfully did. The website lost money for, I think, 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then that's turned around as well. Yeah. So this is a common business thing. So, I mean, if you go on Dragon's Den or in Shark Tank in America, they even talk these days about pre-revenue.
Yeah.
I'm a pre-revenue business. Like, no, well, I don't understand. You're an idea. But like, a lot of people talk about pre-profit before then, and now this pre-revenue idea's coming now. So I always thought that criticism against AEW was quite unfair and bad faith, because that's how you build a business. You invest a lot of money into it, hoping that it will make money back eventually.
WrestleNomics, Brandon Thurston, who I think has done great work on this. I mean, I shout out to people like Brandon Thurston, WrestleVotes, Sean Ross Sapp, Andrew Zarian, and Dave
John
Meltzer.
Pollock, the post-wrestling team.
I think they've all done great work in the reporting of this, and have done very sensible reporting of it. But the idea, like, Brandon Thurston was one of the first people to say, I can't see at the moment how AEW is a profitable business because of X, Y, and Z. The people who are on the anti-AEW grade took that information, which was in good faith, to be like, I mean, this doesn't make it. But once they sign the new TV deal, it'll probably be fine. Like, if they get the new TV deal. But if you're an Eric Bischoff, you'd be like, ha, they are losing money. They're not a profitable business. I am right. This company's going out of business.
I will say there's also another side of all that where, your day-to-day, your year-to-year revenue might just be like, technically you're losing money because you're investing so much back in. But that does ignore a very valuable part of what Tony Khan has been doing, and that is building a brand. Mm-hmm. He has built the IP of AEW with 5 years of very high-quality wrestling programming with some of the best wrestling matches of all time. From a purely archive library perspective, and the acquisition of Ring of Honor as well, he's built up a value of the company that one estimate put it at $1 billion.
Yeah.
If someone was to come in and buy the company, that would cost them $1 billion. It sounds like if they've been making $90 million a year from TV deals, let's add, 40 million for pay-per-view revenue.
Yeah, I think they've done very well out of pay-per-view,
live events, but let's just say, just purely for a number, 150 million operating costs every year. That means over the last 5 years, it's 750 million cost. And obviously, a brand is only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. But if you just go on that, AEW as a brand is worth $1 billion. If WWE TKO were to come in, I expect that would be round about a number.
The price they'd have to
that
pay.
They'd have to pay because it's a competitor and you had a premium for that. Tony Khan's made $250 million on all the money he put in.
Also, as a company that he himself said that when he pitched this to, his dad, let's just say the investor of this, was like, I don't expect this to make money for X amount of years. And it did. It made money like within its first couple of years of operation because they got a really good TV deal out of WBD.
And during a pandemic as well.
Yeah.
The pandemic hit them, 6 months into their TV run?
Well, yeah, I suppose it would be because it happened. They started in October and then everything shut down in March.
They only officially, there was the press conference launch in January, but the first show was May's Double or Nothing. 9 months into their existence as an actively functioning wrestling company, the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
That could have destroyed them, but they came through. They put on, in my opinion, the greatest consistent run of wrestling TV ever. And now they've come out of this. So, I think what's happened, even before news of the TV deal, which I think is very, very positive, they're already doing a really astounding job.
With only 5 years in, it's actually impressive how well they were doing. Attendance notwithstanding, but that's another conversation that maybe we'll have at some point. But let's get into some of the details about
Sorry,
this.
you're so itchy for it.
Well, I've broken this down into various different chunks. So this is from Variety, Sports Business Journal, The Wrestling Observer, and Fightful Select. That's like the 4 big reports that have come out about this TV deal. Variety were the first to report the news. But Variety's report is kind of confirming what a lot of Andrew Zarian and Sean Ross Sapp and WrestleVotes and WrestleNomics and everyone had already previously reported. This is more like there you go. This is what we had been hearing as well, and here it is. So Variety write, financial terms of the deal were not disclosed, but according to sources, the deal is valued at upwards of $150 million per year when all elements are taken into account. Under the new deal, AEW shows Dynamite and Collision will remain on TBS and TNT respectively, but for the first time since its launch in 2019, AEW programming will stream live on Max simultaneously for US subscribers and will be available to stream on demand starting in January 2025.
So obviously WBD, despite Zaslav recently saying that he wants to focus on linear formats of TV stations and movie releases, he knows he's got to get Max off the ground. That's the big future play. You'll probably come onto this. No Rampage in that?
So yeah, Rampage, we'll come on to this in a bit. But
okay.
There could be something for that, but we'll come on to that in a moment. So yeah, probably the big bit of this is it's going to be streamed simultaneously on Max. Interesting what that means for West Coast viewers. You watch it on Max 3 hours before you'd watch it on TV because it'll air the same time as the East Coast, which I thought is an interesting thing. There's also some discussion, this hasn't been confirmed yet, as to whether or not, because I think Max has like a sports thing that kind of like Sky, you pay a little bit extra for to get the sports thing. So there's not a confirmation yet as to whether it's going to be on the main Max service or it's on the Max Extra sports bits.
An upper tier.
Yeah.
We don't have Max in this country.
No.
They've got licensing deals with Sky over here, really, Now TV and stuff. Do they run adverts? Does that mean you can watch those ad free?
I don't know. Because obviously we get it on Triller or Fight as it used to be. And I think it's going to remain on Fight as well.
Internationally.
I guess that because all of the pay-per-views are staying on Fight. So I'm going to assume then the broadcast will still be on Fight as well for us. But yeah, I don't know. It's the same thing we've got with Netflix. We don't know what the Netflix situation looks like with WWE as to whether or not they will still have ad breaks because it's only on Raw's on Netflix, but SmackDown will be on TV in the US, but it's on Netflix over here in the UK. So we don't know yet. On the number of things, Sports Business Journal writes, both AEW and WBD declined to share the financial details behind the deal. However, sources say it's a 3-year deal with an option 4th year. The deal is estimated to be valued at $170 million, including the rights fee and other elements.
3 to 4. So not the WWE 5 with an optional 5 after that. So a potential 10 years there. That's not like a lot of speculation over the sports rights media landscape is that we are at the peak of the bubble.
Yes.
Although do take that with a pinch of salt because people have been saying that for ever. And like, no way people are going to pay any more for the NFL than this year right here. It's 2002. And then they do every period after that. Same with WWE. It's just gone up and up and up. But I think it's something like the NBA or something. They have agreed a deal that isn't worth as much as you would expect. And they've gone for longer terms over maybe more money, but for a less guaranteed period.
Yeah.
So that to me, for 3 years, potentially 4 is a long time, but it's not the minimum 5-year deal that would be really, really comforting, I would say.
However, WrestleVote saying, according to sources close to the situation, AEW's new deal with Warner Bros. Discovery is closer to $185 million per year, not the previously reported $150 million, which Andrew Zarian has said, I can confirm. This is what I've heard.
He's confirmed 150.
No, he's confirming 185.
Damn. Well.
And that also is just for Dynamite and Collision. That is not the pay-per-views on top of it.
Oh, wow.
So the pay-per-views will come with more on top of that.
Well, in all the reporting up to this, I remember Dave Meltzer saying 125 million would be a really good number. Not a blow away, this is an amazing success company, but it'd be a good number. To double your fee, which was a reported 90 million to 185 million.
Yeah, which is double.
That is staggering.
Yeah. And I think the pay-per-view deal, I'll come on to this in a little bit, because I believe that is the case, that pay-per-views are going to come with a bit extra because there are international markets for it as well, and there's an extra premium on top of that. So, I'll come on to that next, in fact, actually, which is from Sports Business Journal. All pay-per-view marketing and promotions will be solely centered on Max. Pricing will be discounted on the platform, but more details around the exact cost will be released in the coming months. So, pay-per-views will be on Max, but you have to pay an extra on top of that in order to get the pay-per-views, but it is less than what you would pay if you got it through payperview.com.
So that makes sense. That is an established thing from the past. I think even, when did I watch the Tyson Fury Usyk fight? I think for Sky Sports subscribers, I think you would have got it for 20 quid, whereas I had to pay 35.
Yes.
For instance. Yeah.
Wrestling Observer would say about it, the price will be lower on Max than it will be through other sources. The pay-per-view events will remain available on regular television, pay-per-view channels, DirecTV, Dish, as well as places like Triller, YouTube, and payperview.com, but most of the marketing will be geared towards Max, and Max will be promoting the events. So when they are talking about it on TV, they'll be saying, you can watch this pay-per-view through Max.
That's interesting. I don't know if you're going to come on to the speculated, rumoured AEW Shockwave thing potentially on Fox. Poor old Fox. They get a wrestling program. Like, great, we've got wrestling programs on here. And then all that wrestling program does is point towards your competitor's subscription service.
Yes. Yeah.
So with WWE, it was...
that and cost them money to put on.
Go watch the premium live events on Peacock, Fox's competitor. If an AEW show does go on Fox, it'll be going... All the pay-per-views, it'll be saying, go over to Max to do that. Warner Bros. Discovery, your competitor.
It does cause problems. That's why, we had that period of time when... I just remember this mad week where they were promoting Hell in a Cell on Peacock, and Fox kicked up a stink that we were promoting Hell in a Cell matches on Peacock. So they put a Hell in a Cell match on SmackDown. Then USA got really pissy that Fox was getting a Hell in a Cell match on TV. It's like, well, we want a Hell in a Cell match on TV as well. Like, fine, we'll do 4 Hell in a Cell matches in a 4-day period.
And that's why it's so nice to have had about 18 months between Hell in a Cell matches recently.
In some cases we weren't going 18 minutes. So on the Fightful thing, I thought this one was very interesting.
Oh, do tell me then.
Of the details of the deal internally, pay-per-views being paywalled, then still costing money, was the only one met with negativity.
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah. So of the details of the deal internally, pay-per-views being paywalled, then still costing money, was the only one met with negativity.
Negativity from inside AEW?
Inside AEW. When we asked those in AEW, they pointed to the UFC point of view of, if you cannibalize your pay-per-view model, you cannot go back. A good example of this is WWE moving to the network format and now being unable to capitalize on big pay-per-view sales now that they're hot. the argument there is that if WWE had stayed on traditional pay-per-view, they would be making more money now than selling their pay-per-view business model to Peacock.
And the UFC, I think, did they guarantee? I can't remember the specifics of the ESPN UFC deal. But you still pay extra for the UFC?
I think it's the same thing as what you're doing with Max at the moment, which is that once you've done this, you then can't. WWE now cannot go back to the pay-per-view model because they've conditioned their audience for the last 10 years to expect pay-per-views for $10.
Yeah, it is.
On top of all the other content.
I suppose it all depends on how much these Max pay-per-views are going to end up costing.
So last thing on this, because I think this is also interesting. One source in WBD said that the ease of access of WWE's pay-per-view events could be a big reason they're so successful now. So it is a double-edged sword of it could go either way. On one hand, you are cannibalizing your pay-per-view business, which has been very lucrative for AEW.
And consistent.
And consistent.
While live events and TV ratings have gone, mostly down, really. The buy rates for pay-per-views year on year have stayed strong, very strong.
Comparing it to TNA, that was where they always struggled. They could get guaranteed 1 million viewers every single week, no matter what they put on Impact, but could not convert any of those 1 million people into buying pay-per-views. We're talking about here on Patreon, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, as their most successful pay-per-view they did, 60,000 buys. AEW do double that for shows that are considered not successes in terms of their pay-per-view buy rates.
If it's not, that part isn't the home run thing, but let's not lose sight of the fact that if this is a potentially $185 million a year deal, I would take the, as they say, one in the hand over two in the bush here. If I get the sense that this business does seem to be on a bit of a decline. Our pay-per-view numbers are steady, but man, the TV money is where it's at. I would prioritize guaranteeing loads of money for the TV stuff and sacrificing a bit of the pay-per-view revenue. And
the idea being that you being on Max and available to more eyeballs should put more eyeballs on your product and therefore make you popular again. As what WBD is saying here. One of the contributing factors to WWE's success is it's so much easier to watch Peacock. I actually got corrected on this on a podcast recently because I was still in the old mindset of more people watch TV than they do the pay-per-views. And that's hugely incorrect because there's so many more subscribers for Peacock than there are watching the TV product. So Peacock viewers are and they're getting it for nout, so they're seeing it more. So the idea of it being on WBD, seeing Dynamite and Collision should, in theory, grow the business model a bit more, and then hopefully grow the pay-per-view model a bit more.
And grow Max as a platform. I think Peacock has far more subscribers than Max.
That's the point I was going to make, is that that's all fine and good for WBD to say that.
Yeah.
But that's because Peacock has a lot of subscribers. That'd be like saying it's done really wonders for them on Netflix. It's Netflix has got a lot of people subscribed to it.
Yeah, some people the CW move for NXT isn't the best for WWE while they're getting more money. That's a station that gets fewer eyeballs than its previous home of USA Network.
Yeah.
So there are all these things to juggle: money, exposure, because sure, you've got more guaranteed money from the TV network for 3 years, but really, do you want to get more eyeballs so more people come to the live events and you sort of have that direct-to-consumer model? Because the TV rights stuff, we're not the customers in that dynamic. Warner Bros. Discovery is the customer to AEW. It's essentially a business-to-business deal where Warner Bros. Discovery are okay, well, now I will go sell this ad inventory or subscription stuff against that. But the live events model, the pay-per-view model, that is AEW catering for us. And I think one of the big problems of the last year for AEW is that they've been catering for Warner Bros. Discovery to get this deal off the ground. They've not been booking for a satisfied wrestling fan.
They are not. Me and Tempest were talking about this on the show, the podcast last week, or it might be a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about how they got into this situation where they've got loads of number one contenders. And I said, yeah, the reason why they're in that position is because they were trying to up their ratings during negotiation season. And a way to do that is to create number one contenders. So every match has stakes and loads of people can win number one contenderships to things. And now we're out negotiation season. So they've now got to try and get rid of all of these number one contenders that they've ended up with. But Fightful also add on there, we're told this model could end up changing for AEW WBD down the road. So this idea of them being like on Max at a higher price point or a discounted price point could change. Could just be it's on Max.
Yeah, and it might be a total failure. It might really take off and they'll adjust accordingly.
From Wrestling Observer, Rampage will be discontinued, as is reported, while the company is shopping around the new Shockwave show to other networks, as noted in our report on the site. That's
interesting that they're not just shopping around Rampage. I think Rampage has a C show. That sounds wrong, but like a C-level show, not a C. Okay.
Fightful Select report. Rampage was a show that WBD requested in 2021, but upon the new deal, both sides prioritized Dynamite and Collision. WBD noted that Rampage could end up elsewhere, but we have yet to hear plans regarding that brand.
Oh, I hope not in addition to a Shockwave.
No, well, it's the idea that Rampage/Shockwave could be the show they're pitching to Fox. Fightful also note in their report that Dynamite and Collision's libraries will end up on Max, and Rampage will be on there as well. But if Rampage does go to Fox or another network, then Rampage's library will be taken off Max.
Oh, right, okay. Tony Khan told me all those years ago that Rampage was his dream wrestling format. He'd been thinking about it forever. I still don't understand what's so unique about it.
It's 1 hour.
But Ring of Honor used to be 1 hour. TNA used to be. NXT used to be 1 hour.
Yeah, it was great when it was 1 hour. I still love it at 1 hour. It's my favorite TV show of the week.
But pay-per-view should be 5 hours long. I'm Luke Owen, and I want 100 matches a night.
I did not say that. So with regards to this shopping around of the other show, Meltzer has quite a bit. He's written a separate article about this, which is discussion we've heard with people with knowledge of the deal did indicate something similar and suggested the idea of either Tuesday or Thursday making the most sense. The indication we've heard is that a deal has not been made and there have been talks, but not necessarily a deal is close. Tony Khan is not wanting to do a Sunday night show because he does not want to give up his Jacksonville Jaguars commitments, plus it would get killed by Sunday Night Football. So that is, if they're going to do it, it's Tuesday or it's Thursday as a 1 hour show on Fox. And if it's not on Fox, on FS1.
If it's Fox, dear God, that's a lot of eyeballs, potentially. I don't know if it'll go on Fox.
I think if it ends up anywhere, it'll be on FS1.
Yeah, so then that is the third level show, really. Dynamite and Collision will still take precedence over it. So Tuesday feels like a bad move because it will go up against NXT. If it's FS1 going up against CW NXT, I don't think that show does well at all.
If it's Fox going up against CW, probably does better.
I would do it, yeah. But I think whatever channel it's on, it beats poor Thursday Night Impact.
Well, yes.
If I'm Impact, I'm a bit nervous about that.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think Impact has a dedicated audience because it's not like their viewership has grown through the NXT partnership. I think no matter what they do, it's going to be viewership at a certain level. Because I've seen people online kind of laughing at the ratings for SmackDown, being like, "Oh, they used to be, this show used to do 2.4 million viewers. Now it's doing 1.7. Where are the viewership going?" I was like, they were on Fox. Yeah. That's a much bigger network with more eyeballs on it than USA is. Of course the ratings were going to go down. So I think if it's on Fox, going to be on CW, sure. If it's an FS1, I don't think I would risk it. Because I think you end up losing to the developmental brand, even if you do have Danielson wrestling on it. Because Meltzer here writes, I could easily see viewer fatigue as something significant because WWE could do more shows as the top promotion, but to most fans, WWE is the priority and they could easily end up in January with 6 hours between Monday and Friday plus 2 on Thursday. If AEW was to go to Tuesday, it would be NXT on CW and AEW on Fox, which would give AEW a huge advantage. That would also lead to far more main roster stars on NXT, which would then dilute the audience for each show if it's a head-to-head battle, which is why Tuesday would make the most sense. So it's almost a way of, if you do it on a Tuesday going head-to-head with them, WWE, by extension, have to put more main roster stars on, which actually just dilutes their specialness, and it dilutes Raw and SmackDown at the same time.
That is some long play chess right there. I mean, I said it. Not so much for Rampage, because it was just an hour extra a week. And initially it was very exciting. They cared about it. You had that, the first one was headlined by Christian Cage and Kenny Omega.
Punk's
There was
debut.
the Britt Baker. That was the second episode.
Yeah.
So it was really good then. It was only an hour long. I was like, yes! From my Ring of Honor days, I was like, yes, make it an hour long. But if you've got Collision as well, I think 5 hours, just as a normal standard every week, it's too much.
Yeah. And Meltzer adds here, this is all very tricky because there is not an audience appetite right now for more AEW television programming a week. At the same time, if a Fox deal could be made, it greatly increases the profit margin to where, at least for the next few years, they would be super successful as a business.
Man, if it's that 185 figure, though, I take that. I focus on building up the brand and not overexposing it.
Yeah.
And I put Collision down to 1 hour.
Ring of Honor was not mentioned in any of the press materials.
Mm-hmm.
Another was True TV. So True TV, which is that's one of TBS's or Turner's things, Warner Brothers Turner's. That's being rebranded to a sports channel only.
Yeah.
They think they'll probably just get replays of Dynamite and Collision. The other thing here, since the announcement of Collision in 2023, this is from Fightful Select, WBD maintained exclusivity, which is why AEW Dark went away. However, under this new deal, AEW regains those rights. There have been mentions internally about possibly using Dark in the future, though nothing is confirmed. Sean did add on Twitter that they have been wanting to bring back Dark for a while now, but can't because they can't put shows on YouTube due to their old WBD deal. Now they don't have that worry anymore, so they can bring back the YouTube show.
Yeah, I don't know how useful that will be. It's not like Dark led to all these people actually becoming stars on the main roster.
I mean, it did for some people. They were using it as like testing grounds for getting people over. Well, like I'm trying to think what her name is now. It's Megan something. Megan. I can't remember what her name is now. But
I think this is proof of my point that AEW Dark did not actually create any new stars.
I think Garcia got his start on Dark.
AEW, I think, has a systematic problem with developing new talent. And they tried Dark, and that wasn't the way to do it.
But that was also during the pandemic where, like people getting like Session Moth Martina got a shot on Dark. I think that's the idea of it. I don't think they need to do it either because they've literally got Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Like Ring of Honor can
That's
do
their
this.
developmental now.
Yeah. This is from Sports Business Journal. WBD also keeps its equity stake in AEW, but the size of it was not disclosed.
What?
So this has been a report from day one of the WBD deal that part of the deal was Warner Brothers owned part of AEW.
I don't remember this.
But it's not ever been backed up by anyone. It's just been said mostly by... It's the thing that the grifters usually hold on to. It's like, well, Warner's own part of them anyway. That's why they're doing these things. But no one has ever really said, no, this is actually a true fact. Like, they don't own a part of the business. And Fightful add in their report, Sports Business Journal also reported that WBD had an equity stake in AEW that they retained. Thus far, neither AEW nor WBD have confirmed this. Beyond that, PR contacts at both companies even noted they'd never heard of that aspect of WBD having equity in AEW.
Okay, so we still don't know.
We still don't know,
but probably not.
But probably not. It's probably like... So they have said... Well, Sports Business Journal are the only people saying they have an equity in it. No one else is reporting this, and Sean is saying people are actively saying it's not.
Probably best to, keep in the back of your mind, but let's not put too much stock in it.
Lastly, I wanted to note this, which is from Variety's write-up of this, because I wanted to bring this up because it ties into your graph. AEW's flagship show Dynamite debuted on TNT in October 2019. The show currently ranks as Wednesday's #1 cable entertainment series among adults 18 to 49. Collision is currently in the top 5 in its Saturday time slot among both adults 18 to 49 and men 18 to 49. We can look at this. We can look at this graph and we can pinpoint this, that, and the other. But they're always #1. Is this a sign of AEW's decline? Which it sort of is. Or is it also a sign of TV's decline?
Yes. Yeah. It's all part of it.
It's part of it.
I think if you were to trace WWE's ratings, which would be an interesting exercise, they don't have such a sheer...
No. In fact, they're doing this. They're going up. Like, look at past Monday's Raw. the report came out initially, Nielsen said it got 1.2 million viewers. No one was like, whoa, that's like disastrously low for WWE at the moment. It would have been the lowest thing. But they're like, oh no, it's actually wrong. It was 1.5. And I was like, oh, that's actually a great number considering the really strong competition that they had. NXT had a killer number on the CW. Granted, that's a debut, so that's always going to be a higher number.
What was the number? I didn't actually.
It's 895, I think.
Okay, that's good.
But yeah, like it's hard to say because that's the debut show. It's also got CM Punk on it. It's got 2 title matches on it. But also it was going up against the debate. So it's got strong competition elsewhere. So I think for me, this is less of a thing about like the money wise or sort of like their status in the entertainment industry, because they are always number one on a Wednesday night, or are usually number one on a Wednesday night, and they're in the top 5 on a Saturday. That's not Wrestling Observer right now, but that's not Sean Ross Sapp. That is Variety. That is the industry leaders are saying this is what matters. But I think this is a much more interesting to look at the audience interest in AEW, because I think you can chart this a lot with live attendance as well, which I think is also a really big factor into this. It is a company that appears to be popular amongst business, but not amongst wrestling fans.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like the TV channels actually see this as, oh my God, we can get the number 1 show on a Wednesday night on cable.
Virtually guaranteed every Wednesday we're going to have the number 1 show on cable.
It's on 52 weeks a year. That's quite rare for, even other sports are seasonal.
Programming.
And other ones have... I mean, what show has beyond 12 episodes in a series now? It used to be 24 or nothing.
Yeah. Try to get for that syndication number.
Yeah.
Lastly, the only other note here from Meltzer, which is the new deal will make the company very profitable going forward, even if no deal is made for a 3rd weekly show. Yeah.
So that's why I would take that win and don't go for a 3rd weekly show and make things as best they can. So Tony Khan said in a press conference before pay-per-view, probably All Out, I guess, that was the last one, or maybe it was the Ring of Honor one afterwards, that this deal will make AEW the 2nd most profitable wrestling company in North America of all time.
I think that might have been a quote from The Observer, because The Observer said if they can get this deal, they will become the 2nd most profitable wrestling company ever.
And that was on a potentially lower estimate.
Yeah.
So, well done. This is a good thing for AEW, and it's a better thing for the wrestling industry.
So lastly, on that 3rd hour, the 3rd show, Swerve Strickland, have you seen this?
Yeah.
Accidentally let slip that they were going to go on to Fox. Turns out, Sean Ross Sapp had a really funny report about this on Fightful Select. There are those in AEW that wish that had not got out. Also, Swerve didn't realize he was being filmed.
Which I find, I've watched the clip and it's quite obviously a podcast interview.
Well, he didn't realize they were filming at that point for a vlog. He thought they were off camera at that point, so it was just talking generally. But... yeah, it got caught on camera and then got out. And they, it almost feels like it is happening, but only a handful of people might know about it.
Shows how much wrestlers talk. Swerve, who I would say is one of the more media savvy wrestlers they have, the red light wasn't even off. Oh, by the way, here's some exclusive news. I won't say it on air, but I'll tell everyone who I talk to.
I'll tell you. I feel like sometimes wrestlers maybe do that to try and test the waters to see, like, if I just tell you this off the cuff, how quickly does it get out to someone else?
Or they love gossiping.
Or it could just be they just love to chat.
Telegram, telephone, tele-wrestler.
Let's look at this graph then.
Yeah. Can I actually just say one thing? Because
of course you can.
We've spoken a lot about the money and the history of how we got to this point. But what does this mean for the future? Because now AEW has such an increased profit margin, they can feasibly change the product. And that's everything from more pyro on shows, increasing production standards, hopefully. Big signings. Kevin Owens' WWE contract's up soon.
The 548 report on that was that if he does become a free agent it's later this year, I think. It's later this year. If he does become a free agent, they will make a huge play to sign him. And of course, he's very good friends with the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who, when Cody left, put him in touch with the Bucks to be like, call these guys, they'll help you.
And the other thing is just the general quality of the product. Now that Tony Khan doesn't have this huge anxiety cloud hanging over him of, oh my God, this is an existential threat to the company.
I need to prove Eric Bischoff wrong.
Just play the security footage of All Out.
Yeah.
I don't care. Hopefully now he can calm down, take stock. He's got 3, potentially 4 years of breathing room.
Mm-hmm.
Let's improve the product and make stuff mean things again.
That is what I'm hopeful for. That's what we saw in the early days. Once they'd got the TV deal and they were able to be like, we've got this for the next 5 years. Those early years were absolutely were the best years that they had. It has only really been in these last year, 18 months. Part of that is Punk and the Punk drama. The other half of that is we need to improve these television ratings or make these television ratings as good as possible in order to get a good TV deal out of this. Like one wrestler has told me in the past with regards to WBD is and they weren't working for AEW. They were friendly with people who were there and friendly with people at WBD. Told me that I've brought this up before. The ratings that we kind of focus on, that sort of like 600, 700, 800. They told me, it was like, if you can get me, like what WBD's aspect is, if you can get me 500,000, you may as well have got me $1 million. Like that is, if you can get 500,000 viewers a week, that's $1 million to me. That is
from a few years ago.
Yes, like that is, so it's like, that's great. Like that is, you've done me absolutely wonders there, which is why I find it very humorous when people are just like, oh, it's like, that's such a huge drop off. It's like, it's still above that 500,000 thing, which is what they were saying on day one. That was always Meltzer's report. If you are getting 500,000 viewers a week, which is what they had told them they were going to get, then they're doing great on that. So they were always going to be a success after it. And this came to mind yesterday. I'm catching up on the Mr. McMahon series. They were talking about the XFL. And they said that first episode of the XFL not only blew away expectations, it blew away what they told advertisers it was going to get. They told advertisers to expect this, and they got this. So advertisers were super happy, and the TV stations were super happy. Problem is the ratings then did that, and they lost like 75% of their audience. But Dynamite has not lost 75% of its audience. Its decline in viewership is lower than the drop between Raw has had over the last 5 years. But their viewership has remained high. But like the crucial with Raw is theirs is now going back up again.
Well, let's do this. Show me this graph. So what's really interesting about this graph isn't just there it is in cold, hard numbers and a line. Sorry for podcast listeners, you're going to have to go over to the video version for this.
Or try and find the graph on. I'll link to the graph
and you can see there that currently AEW is at its lowest point ever, and you can see the general story of started at a point which was pretty damn good. Pandemic hit, and then it increased to the CM Punk debut.
Can I point out one of your favorites here? This first drop, that point there, and it goes back up. That's when Tony Khan took the book.
Yeah,
because they had that show in December, which was like them when the Dark Order laid out the Elite, and they had a 2-week gap where they did clip shows for the Christmas period, and then in January, Tony Khan took over the book, and that's what sees the giant leap up and sort of carries them through 2020 and then, through the pandemic.
So the general story is CM Punk debuts as the high point, and when Cody Rhodes leaves, the purchase of ROH and CM Punk gets injured, and then Brawl Out happens. From then, it's a line downwards. But what's great about this graph is how it charts milestones in AEW history alongside it. The only thing I would add to this is also parallels with WWE.
Yes.
So that, like, when WWE gets hot, which is... Actually, no, let's go from the start and we'll get to those WWE milestones. So, AEW launches the same week that freaking Brock Lesnar squashes Kofi Kingston on SmackDown, and The Fiend craps the bed in the Hell in a Cell match against Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
That was all the same week.
Not a bad time. No, not a good time, I should say, for WWE.
And they started at an amazingly high number, like just over 1 million there. Then it goes down, like Luke said, to a low point for them at the time. But there was a lot of the big storyline was going to be the invasion of the Dark Order. They had some great video packages leading up to this. The original leader was going to be Marty Scurll, but that fell through, and Marty Scurll went to a lucrative creative control contract over at Ring of Honor, effectively heading that all up. But then they didn't really have a follow-through for that story.
No. Remember there's going to be Raven at one point? He was sat in the crowd.
And it was no one. Was it? It was just Evil Uno.
It was Brody Lee. He was the exalted
eventually, in March.
Yeah, well, yeah. Eventually.
Not in December, then.
No, not in December. Their plans had fallen through then. And then, it's like you retribution it. You retroactively say, yeah, it was Mr. and he was the SmackDown hacker.
So they paid off on that really good build with no leader and a rubbish angle. Was a down point. But then, yeah, you're totally right. Tony Khan, according to reports, took over the book from the Elite. So before then it was the Bucks and Omega, and I guess Cody heading up stuff. And I thought Cody's stuff at this time was brilliant.
Yeah, you really enjoyed that stuff, yeah.
I mean, the undeniable promo on Chris Jericho is an all-time great, and that is around that November period. Tony Khan books, boom, boom, boom. John Moxley wins the title. Yay, everything's going up. Oh no, the pandemic.
Yeah.
A really good run of shows, all things considering. Lance Archer, just chucking people through ceilings. But it was the pandemic. You see this across the board. Live audience does improve the product. But then near the end of 2020, which I guess is August time, so we've got the... what would this be? I guess that's just when crowds started to come back in a limited capacity.
Actually in a limited capacity, because there were people there for Winter is Coming.
Yeah,
when they were doing it in Jacksonville.
Those Jacksonville shows, yeah. So then you got that, and then you've got it goes down a bit. I can't remember what this peak here was. Maybe it's All Out?
The October 2020? Yeah, it would have been All Out.
Or a Full Gear?
Full Gear. I think people were certainly into Kenny and Hangman, which was like the main story of AEW at that
I think that's that August 2020 is an all-out peak. And then it falls, for whatever reason, but not too dramatically, not to the lows of the pandemic. But then we get, and you see it very clearly, Sting debuts. Winter is Coming. Kenny Omega wins the belt from John Moxley. And there's the TNA Tease crossover.
Yeah.
Awesome. Boom! Things go up to about 900,000 again. And then we dip down, But look at this bit. Nothing happens. AEW don't do anything on their end in April, but NXT stops.
Yeah.
And that, from what I can see, is the single highest increase in anything they do.
Because it's not a split audience anymore.
So they were going up, head-to-head, NXT versus AEW every Wednesday night.
Which was the report at the time when they did this in 2019. From WWE's perspective, it was not about beating them in the ratings. It was taking ratings away from them.
They went from 750,000-ish to their highest rating ever within about a month.
Yeah.
When NXT stopped. Unfortunately, it looks like they didn't keep them, because then there was a sharp drop-off after that. I guess you had a big NXT audience, so like, well, I usually watch wrestling on Wednesdays. I'll check out this other AEW thing. They had a moment of interest and they came down. But then you start to get the CM Punk and Bryan Danielson rumors. And it is just a steadily build, because CM Punk's debut happens, but the peak of interest was already weeks before, a month before. And that's because they did a very smart play of announcing everything without saying it properly. So Punk debuts. Then you get All Out, which has Danielson, Adam Cole. Freaking Suzuki's on that show. Just an all-time...
Ruby Soho.
And that is the highest peak that AEW ever had.
Sure did.
Understandably.
And then shortly after that is Grand Slam.
Yes, the Danielson-Omega match.
Yep.
And that's probably why that stays at that consistent peak. And then, that's such a high. It comes back down to more the 800,000 level.
But I think you look at this graph, that is the story of AEW, is that they do lots of big things that generate interest. Punk, Danielson versus Omega, things like that, Sting coming in, debuting. It's what they struggle with, and actually wrestling as a whole always struggles with it. It's maintaining that audience. They can do a lot to make some noise and make people watch one show, but there is nothing on that show that makes people stick around to watch that show.
Well, I slightly disagree, because what you are seeing here, the data shows that, yeah, you've got these big peaks of interest, but also the average is being raised. So sure, not everyone's stuck around for after the CM Punk, Danielson, Adam Cole debuts.
But it converted enough.
But the new average for them is so much higher.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah.
Like from down here. And then they keep that until August that year, which is unfortunately Brawl Out. But also in that time, Cody Rhodes left. And you do see a drop-off here, and Punk gets injured, so he's not around. 2 big draws. But Cody Rhodes leaving, we've only got the date Cody Rhodes leaves there. That little dip after that, which is Punk leaving. Sorry, Punk getting injured as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's when Cody joins WWE.
I was going to try and chart when WWE get hot. And I don't think it is there, because I don't think it happens until the following year, when, like, I think it's like SummerSlam 2022, Clash of the Castle.
Yes.
I think is when that is the pinpoint of when WWE starts to become the hot product. And it's when Triple H takes over.
Yeah. It's when Vince McMahon retires. So then you've got this increase for All Out, because
that's Punk's return.
Punk's coming back. So this bit here, this August period, is the AEW All Out of CM Punk versus Jon Moxley versus Triple H's new WWE SummerSlam, which is, I mean, let's be honest, it's Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. We've seen it 100 times already.
It's also, with that Brawl Out thing, it's not just the return of Punk, it's the return of the Elite. Because Kenny's been gone for all that time. Kenny comes back for that show. That's just like one of his first matches back.
In a trios match?
Yeah, because in the trios championship match. It was the finals of the trios tournament.
So then, as soon as Brawl Out happens, there is a steep fall. Yeah. And I would expect that is a very similar increase for how many people... That is Punk.
Absolutely it is, yeah.
You always bring up that scene from Succession when they're looking at the stock market value of their company the day after something big happens.
Yeah.
And like, oh, that's the value of that particular person.
Yeah.
And you can look here, oh, that is the value of Punk.
Yeah.
Over 1 month, his AW ratings fell from this number to this number.
Because it's back then, it's just sort of about the average that they were at pre him signing.
Yeah, good point. So then it's sort of steady, but it is slightly declining.
It's a higher average than it was at the start. Like, it's a higher average than it was in 2020, 2021, but that is hard to compare it to because that's pandemic era.
But what's interesting is Punk's return, which is when Collision debuts, isn't that big an increase.
I think by that point, and I'm judging this on the reactions that we were getting on our channel for our reviews, I think people were done with the Punk drama at that point. It was a case of just go or just stay in your lane. And what Punk came back, and it didn't feel like the same Punk. And it didn't have the magic and the spark that it had. And Collision became not must-see TV. Also, as well, I should point out here, we're looking at this. This is Dynamite. Punk's not on Dynamite.
Yeah, he was pre-Brawl Out.
No, well, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the sort of Collision debut here, because we're not talking about like the Collision debut and Punk's return, kind of like sparks anything out. No, because he's not on Dynamite. He's a Collision guy, and he's got his little Collision team. Not that was drawing in viewers either, but that was also on a Saturday night against much stronger competition.
But that is a good point. I hadn't thought of that, because it's a slight blip, but it does somewhat. If you just take that period of Collision debuts and CM Punk is fired, that is actually an upward trend for a show that Punk isn't on. No. But it coincides with Punk coming back to AEW.
Yeah. There's a little bit of like hotness around the company.
Yeah. And it's Punk's doing. So then you get CM Punk is fired. And fascinatingly, the the viewership pretty much goes up.
But I think that's people tuning in to see the week after.
The week after, but then the following month is still quite high. I guess you've got Grand Slam. I would say in those initial months, AEW did quite well with putting on a good product, considering everything. They were like, all right, let's just concentrate. Punk's gone now. Head down. But then, and this is what really fascinates me, I'm pretty sure that steep fall afterwards is when Punk shows up in WWE.
So yeah, November. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would tie into it because that's where November is.
So even though Punk has left AEW, Punk is definitively not on AEW program anymore. Him showing up in another wrestling promotion dropped viewers for AEW.
But it also ties into when WWE felt like actually no, I'm going to take that back, because at that point it was a boring show. Like, I think a lot of people forget how boring the summer through to November was for WWE last year.
It was the Punk debut that sort of
kicked things back up because
yeah.
that was Roman was gone, Cody was treading water until Roman came back.
Jey Uso lost.
Jey Uso was like, the story of WWE at that point was it's Team Good Guys versus Judgment Day. And it was just an assortment. Like, every single week was Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus the Judgment Day. It was Cody Rhodes versus the Judgment Day. And he was in lame duck feuds with Shinsuke Nakamura that wasn't like in Direct Fights. And SmackDown, without a champion, was kind of doing nothing.
So it's not as a dramatic thing as NXT, something that other company did, as in WWE stops NXT, a load of wrestling fans suddenly have, oh, well, I've got time to watch this other thing. I think it's the opposite story here when Punk shows up in WWE. It's like, oh, I'm a wrestling fan. I've only got so much time for wrestling. I'm going to see what Punk's doing in WWE. And it captivated them. And going by this, they never came back.
It just hit me then. Do you know what it also coincides with? It's MJF and Full Gear. That's November last year. Is the tiredness that people had over the MJF storyline, because this sort of summer period here where it's actually like not bad and the the viewership's really good. That's Adam Cole and MJF.
Yeah.
That's the really hot story.
That's a good point
of that year.
Yeah,
that's the leading into All In and their match, and then it's Cole gets injured and Punk gets fired, and the MJF stuff becomes him defending the ROH tag titles, like either on his own or with Samoa Joe, and it doesn't captivate the audience as much. So you're looking at this sort of November period here. It's like, yeah, it was the tail end of MJF's run where people were kind of tired of his babyface shtick at that point.
So then, okay, we've done Punk. We've also done the rise of WWE for this. What's most fascinating after that, and I really think it does underline this point that I would say me and you have accepted in recent months, that you can have the best wrestling product in the world. At the end of the day, most people come for individual wrestlers.
It's the stars.
And if you ask me, was Sting one of the main things propping up AEW viewership? I would have said, no. I mean, it's a part of it, but it's not like as huge as good wrestling or storylines or people like that. The moment he retires in February 2024, the ratings go into freefall and have become the lowest they've ever been.
Mm-hmm. And that one blip we've got there where it's gone up is probably the airing of the All In footage.
Yes. A blip which goes up, but then I think, and I not enough people talk about this. If I didn't do this job, I would have stopped watching AEW at that point. I thought it was really, really bad taste and a move that I wouldn't have forgave them for a while. And I think that's true of others, because then you see this big, steep fall. Mm-hmm. What's this jump up here?
So that's that's July?
Yeah.
Is July when they did the footage?
No, it was before then. That's
that blip there? Oh yeah, that would make sense. What happened in July? What was AEW doing in July?
It was only 2 months ago.
Forbidden Door season.
I guess you got the Will Ospreay MJF 1 hour draw.
Yes, but yeah.
Maybe it is that. And then things just sort of level off, and it is where it is today, which is 680,000 viewers.
I think the other thing to look at in this 2024 period and sort of like this decline is that's The Rock coming in, WrestleMania, and WWE Not just like what I think has been really impressive about WWE this year is they had such a hot start to the year with The Rock and Cody and Roman and all that sort of stuff. And the Netflix announcement, like they weathered the Mr. McMahon storm, the Vince storm of him, like, you know, the Janelle Grant case coming out. They weathered through that storm and came out of it so high, but have maintained so much of that into the summer. There is a chance where they could have had this CM Punk debut moment here with the big drop down afterwards. They could have had that.
Yeah.
But because they have got really good stars that people are into at the moment, they have had a bit of a decline into the summer, but it has actually been really well held that's taking them through to the end of the year.
Yes, that's any other thoughts on this? I just thought it was so fascinating to see all in one place like this. Something that we track week to week and sometimes year to year, but never so big.
As I said, like I think what would be really interesting is to see that graph with WWE's ratings, which is it's going to be kind of hard to track because they're above.
Yeah.
But you might be able to see sort of trends and stuff. And I think if you had like, you know, where Vince retires, Triple H takes over, The Rock comes in, Cody wins the title, you might see like while this one is going down, the other one is going up, and they'd be like, there it is. That's the moment.
I think so. I think they would be somewhat of a mirror image of each other, like looking in the reflection of a lake. Because when that CM Punk bit debuts, I reckon they're within touching distance of Raw.
Probably at that point, yeah. If it's going 1.2, Raw at that point was probably doing like 1.4.
So a AEW peak would probably often coincide with a WWE trough.
Because they were like through 2019 through to, you know, and that's the period we're looking at here, through 2019 through to 2023, it's not a good product. Like 2022 is fine, and you know Cody
Gets
going
better.
across, but Cody's missing for some of that year anyway. It is starting to get better, but it does not get better until the summer of 2023, and then it becomes awesome. Actually, and that WrestleMania was really good as well.
Yeah.
That year's WrestleMania, 2023 WrestleMania was really good, but the summer when Vince definitely finally goes is when it is like a much better product.
Yeah. I think looking at this and talking about it, I think maybe there is like in politics, they always talk about the undecided chunk of people. And that's really what people are warring over, because some people are always going to vote left, some people are always going to vote right. But it's the middle 40% of people that win the elections. And that's kind of what you've got with this wrestling war, although I wouldn't really call it a war anymore. It's more of a squash match.
Well, I think it was ever really a war in the sense of they were competing against ratings. It was more of a war of business, I suppose it was. Like it was a war in the sense that they would counter-program each other. If they were running head-to-head, they would counter-program each other. WWE did tactics to screw with AEW's businesses to try and undermine their business. So it is a war in that sense, but it is not like the Monday Night War where it's like they're head-to-head on these shows, and sometimes this one does better, or for 3 weeks, one of them does much better than the other one does. It's not a war in that sense. It is still a wrestling war in the sense of, I do not want you to be a successful business, so I'm going to do what I can to make you not be a successful business.
Well, hopefully now AEW is pretty objectively a successful business with this new TV deal. We'll see in 4 years' time a graph that goes steadily up and then craps the bed again.
Or do you see a WWE one that declines? They always say that a booker has a 5-year shelf life. So Triple H is now in year 2. Like, you know, what happens in the next 3 years? Does he crap the bed?
I think he's smart. I think he'll surround himself with people with fresh ideas.
I'd hope so.
And the Netflix thing's going to be a big boon. And next year, like Rock coming back and John Cena's retirement tour, those are huge.
Sorry, you've actually just reminded me there. This, I meant to mention this about the TV deal. We're never going to be able to have these conversations.
Oh, no.
Because it's going to kill TV ratings. If it's airing simultaneously on Max, that is what they're going to be pushing towards. So the ratings for Dynamite probably will end up being lower because people are watching it through Max rather than traditional TV means, which means we may not be able to look at these graphs in 5 years' time to really chart how well TV viewers should do. We won't be able to do it with Raw going to Netflix. Like, we'll never know. We'll never know what its viewership is. There are some people who will be thrilled about that because they don't like TV ratings, Chad, but I do. I like these bits.
We're going to have minutes watched quarterly. That's all we'll get.
But and it'll be what Netflix tell us our minutes watched and what quarters do. We won't know because Nielsen doesn't track it, so we won't have verifiable sources.
Well, I think the Nielsen tracking industry will have to start including streaming stuff. I don't know how they do that, but
that's it. Yeah, don't know how it's going to work. But yeah, this may be one of the last times you and I get to do a podcast like this where we talk about ratings and stuff, because that is no longer the way we'll track success.
So we'll have to do it by vibes.
I mean, maybe attendance would be how you look at it. Like how hot a product is by the amount of people that are willing to buy. And I think, actually, I was about to say buy rates, but you can't even do buy rates anymore. If they're going to max, the buy rates are going to look different to what they were 3 years ago.
Google searches.
Aha! The Meltzer way.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this special one. If you liked it, let us know. And yeah. But usually we say subscribe and stuff, but you're already here, you're already supporting, so thank you so much.
If you are new, go check out the other bonus content, the exclusive content that we load here, like new exclusive episodes of 3 counts of TLC, of
Worst Match Ever, Survival Series.
Absolutely, yeah. Or
Monday
go watch
Night War.
Monday Night War, because that's going up there at the moment. That's me versus Pete, and my last chance to beat him at the game. So that's going to be running for a few more weeks. So thank you all so much for joining us. And hopefully you'll stick around if you're new. And if you are subscribing and you've been here for a while, I hope you stick around as well. I'm just going to get ready to stop recording. Love you. Bye. Jam that jam.